The early morning mist hung low over the quiet valley of Oakridge. Inside a small, weathered wooden house at the edge of the forest, the silence was absolute, except for the soft, steady sound of breathing. Edward sat near the large glass window, staring out at the frozen grass. At 62 years old, his hair was entirely silver, and his hands trembled slightly as he held an old, faded ceramic mug filled with black tea. The house, which had once been filled with the chaotic laughter of 3 growing children and the busy steps of a lively home, was now painfully quiet. His children had moved away, years ago, to pursue their careers in distant cities, calling only occasionally on holidays. His wife had passed away 5 years prior, taking the warmth of the home with her. For Edward, the days bled into one another, without distinction. Time seemed to have lost its meaning, but in that cold, hollow existence, there was one constant source of comfort, a warm, solid presence, resting beside his rocking chair. It was Cooper. Cooper was an 8-year-old golden retriever, with deep, expressive amber eyes that seemed to carry an ancient wisdom. His once reddish golden fur was now dusted with white around his muzzle, mirroring his master's aging appearance. Cooper was not merely a pet. He was Edward's companion, confidant, and sole tether to the living world. Every morning followed a sacred routine. Before Edward could even set his feet on the wooden floorboards, Cooper would rise from his rug, stretch his front paws, and gently rest his heavy head on Edward's knee. There were no words spoken, yet a complete conversation transpired in those quiet moments. Cooper's soft, slow tail thumps were a promise. I am here, and I will not leave. When the loneliness became suffocating, Cooper would quietly walk over and press his body firmly against Edward's legs. He would place one heavy, warm paw directly on Edward's foot, offering an unconditional comfort that human words often failed to provide. Human relationships, as Edward had learned, through painful experience, were often conditional and fragile. People moved away, priorities shifted, and promises faded with time. But Cooper's loyalty was absolute. To Cooper, Edward was the entire universe. The winter of that year arrived early, bringing harsh, icy winds that rattled the window panes. On a freezing Tuesday evening in late November, the temperature inside the cottage dropped sharply as a snowstorm gathered outside. Edward was carrying a heavy armful of dry firewood from the back porch toward the fireplace when a sudden, sharp tightness seized his chest. It was a blinding, suffocating pain that radiated down his left arm and robbed him of his breath instantly. The logs spilled from his arms, crashing loudly onto the floorboards. Edward gasped, clutching his chest. He tried to reach the dining table where his mobile phone was sitting, but his legs gave way, and he collapsed heavily onto the cold rug near the hearth. Cooper sprang to his feet immediately, rushing to Edward's side. He nudged Edward's cheek with his wet nose, letting out low, anxious whines. Edward managed to whisper a faint, trembling word, "Help," before losing consciousness. Cooper ran to the front door and began barking frantically, but the howling storm outside swallowed the sound entirely. Realizing that no one would hear him, Cooper pushed his weight against the wooden latch of the back patio door. After several desperate attempts, the latch yielded, and the door swung open. Without hesitation, Cooper sprinted into the blinding blizzard. He ran down the icy, unlit lane toward the main road until he reached the driveway of the nearest neighbor, nearly half a mile away. Arthur, an elderly neighbor, was clearing snow when he heard desperate barking. Cooper burst through the snowdrift, barked sharply, grabbed Arthur's winter coat between his teeth, and pulled him toward the road. Realizing something was wrong, Arthur grabbed a flashlight and followed the running dog through the storm. He found Edward unconscious on the floor and immediately called emergency services. 2 days later, Edward opened his eyes in a warm hospital room. The doctor informed him that if medical help had arrived 20 minutes later, he would not have survived. When Edward returned home, Cooper was waiting near his chair. Edward sank down onto his knees and pulled the old golden retriever into a tight, emotional embrace. "You saved me, my old friend," Edward whispered, tears streaming down his cheeks. Cooper rested his heavy chin on Edward's shoulder, letting out a deep, contented sigh. In that quiet room, amidst the freezing winter, lay an unbroken bond of love and loyalty that time could never erase. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more moving stories. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and share this video with someone who loves animals. Thank you for watching.